Welcome to the Primo's Musings podcast.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. I'm hoping that this will record because I've never done an email
Okay.
with friends, but let's see if this will um, record it. Let's see. All right. Welcome, Steve. And really excited about this podcast. Um, and I'm looking forward to your analysis on the Giants. So let's first get started. Hopefully, you can hear me. Okay.
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I can hear you. We know that you wanted to talk about the Giants and also the needs and uh, all the things that you want for all the other 5 rounds. But I know you guys have the number 6 pick, if I'm not mistaken. But let's quickly recap who we think will go in the top 5. I want to get your thoughts on who will go in the top 5 picks. And then we can swing to the Giants after that.
Yeah. So it looks like it's going to be a quarterback heavy draft at the top, anyways. It looks like the Bears are going to be taking Caleb Williams from all and everything you read and reports are coming out. The second pick with the Washington Commanders is really, I think, where the draft changes a little bit. The question is, are they going to go Jaden Daniels or are they going to go Drake May? It appears Daniels might be the selection. And then I guess the question is, what do your Patriots do with the third pick? Because what
That's an
I've been
interesting.
reading is, they're not really as high on May as Daniel. Is that what you're reading as well?
Yeah, I think this is a draft which is not very, I would say, quarterback heavy draft, right? I mean, I think it's a pretty, I would say, weak draft in terms of when you compare with like previous years. I think it's a weak draft. I think Caleb Williams is probably the one quarterback who's pretty high on everyone's draft board. And you're right. Chicago is going to take him. They've definitely built the offense around him. And Chicago will probably pick another wide receiver in the draft as well in the first round. But I think apart from Caleb Williams, now it's just I would say, a crapshoot between Drake May, Jaden Daniels, JJ McCarthy. I mean, JJ McCarthy has been climbing up on the draft boards, and I did hear few mock draft picking him. Vikings, I think, jumping ahead, making a trade with the Chargers to pick McCarthy because they already have a lot of the pieces of the puzzle in place in Minnesota. So you asked me about the Patriots. To me, I think it's going to come down to if the Washington Commanders do. I've seen both cases where Washington Commanders may take Drake May, which means Jaden Daniels from LSU falls in the Patriots' lap. I mean, I think that could happen, or it could be the other way around. If Jaden Daniels goes to Washington, I feel that Drake May is the New England Patriots selection. I don't see them trading down, and I know there will be other quarterbacks out there. McCarty definitely go. I think he's going to the Vikings through a trade, and I'm not a big fan of Michael Penix Jr. The reason being that, I mean, even the national championship game, I didn't see him do really well. But maybe, I don't know if Atlanta may jump up to pick up Michael Penix there and to back up Kirk Cousins and maybe sit him down and then, work on some fundamentals and then he can take over the team after Cousins. So that's what I think. I mean, I think the Patriots are it's going to be Drake May or Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, so you're thinking quarterback for sure. And I think that's probably a fair assessment because to be this high in the draft and have an opportunity to take a quarterback when you don't necessarily have a franchise quarterback, I think you need to do it. Then personally, I hope the Giants take a receiver. Malik Neighbors would be my pick. I don't think Harrison will be available. I think Neighbors has really got he's got the playmaking, the separation skills, just the number one receiver that they're lacking. They've been lacking that for years, ever since Daniel Jones has been quarterback. So I feel like I really hope they get a WR1, even if it's a Dunzy. Even though I think Neighbors is more of a slot receiver from what I've been reading, and the Dunzy's more of an outside threat. So they might lean towards the Dunzy just because he's bigger, a little more physical. Where they have a slot receiver now in Wan'Dale Robinson. They have a guy that can take it over the top with Hyatt, Jalen Hyatt. So the perfect combo that you would think would be a Dunzy, even though I think Neighbors really is a game-changing player. Like I said, I don't think Harrison will be available. I don't,
Harrison is
and I've been
gone.
reading a lot about J.J. McCarthy too, and I don't know. I'm not 100% sold on him. I think he benefited a lot. Obviously, playing at Michigan, and you got to give him credit. He was undefeated, led an undefeated championship team, but didn't have to do a lot of passing. So to trade up and give up a lot for McCarthy, you're gonna put him on an offense with not that many weapons, and you saw what our line was last year, right? And I know we kind of I think we picked up 3 or 4 linemen in free agency.
Yeah.
So I mean, the only benefit to getting a quarterback with our first pick is we'll be able to reset the salary cap, or you'll be able to get your QB1 with a minimum with a minimum deal, first year deal, I should say. Where Jones, obviously, he's commanding a lot of money right now.
Okay. So I'm going to throw a little wrinkle for you. Okay. So I like your pick with Malik Neighbors. That's where I've been seeing in a lot of the mock drafts, Giants. Although when you look at the wide receivers, you're right. Marvin Harrison Jr. is gone. I would be surprised if the Cardinals don't pick him. I mean, if they make a trade down with another team, I'd be shocked. I think they have the quarterback. Kyler Murray is still there. They have a very good, decent system. I think Marvin Harrison just puts them over the top. I think it's like picking. I mean, this is going to be very tough. I think when you look at wide receivers in this year's draft, you got Odunze, you got Marvin Harrison Jr., you got Malik Neighbors. I think Arizona picks Marvin Harrison. So the next best, and this is where I was going to ask you this, between Odunze and Malik Neighbors. Now, Malik Neighbors played with Jaden Daniels in LSU. Odunze played with Penix in Washington. Who do you think would be a better fit for the Giants? And that's my first question. My second question is, do you see the Giants picking a quarterback in this year's draft? And I know Daniel Jones has been your guy, but do you think they pick a quarterback over? And then my third question for you is, I know they have a left tackle, Joe Alt from Notre Dame, probably the best. I think he's probably the best player after Caleb Williams in the draft this year. Do you think they could move him to right tackle? Do you think they get some help for Daniel Jones, not from a wide receiver standpoint, but on the offensive line standpoint? So you got 3 questions: wide receiver, quarterback, and offensive line. There you go.
Yeah, so I think I would prefer Neighbors. I would not be surprised if they take a Dunzy, just because I think a Dunzy might be, as I was kind of talking about earlier, a better fit for the team. Like I said, you have a slot receiver with Robinson. You have a guy that can go over the top with Hyatt. And now a Dunzy would be the third receiver, or quite honestly, your number 1 receiver. But to fill a different need, he'd be your guy that you go to on a 3rd and 7 to make that contested catch, your big physical outside receiver. So where I think Neighbors, when I read, is a little more of a slot receiver, great separation, but is he a little too similar to Robinson? So I would not be surprised if they win Odunze. Quarterback, I'll say this. I think at number 5, I would not be shocked if the Chargers trade out, because they know they can get a king's ransom for the pick, particularly if someone's coming up for a quarterback, and they could still get a very good receiver. The Neighbors, Odunze, if they trade within the top 10, or maybe they trade down and trade back up. Harbaugh already mentioned that. I think that's one of the reasons why he's talking up McCarthy to get teams up to get teams to move up. So there's that. As you mentioned, I'm a Daniel Jones guy. I don't think he's ever had really a quite honestly a fair chance. And I know the line last year was as bad of a line as I've seen in the NFL in all the years I've been watching. The line gave up, I think, a league record like 85 sacks. So he didn't really have a fair opportunity. A lot of the weapons were out. I mean, Robinson was out the first part of the year. Hyatt was a brand new receiver, and our right tackle position was just absolutely terrible with Evan Neal. And then actually Andrew Thomas, our left tackle, was out after the Cowboy game. So really, it was not surprising that Jones got hurt, throughout the year. And so I think but the only concern now with Jones is he's got the injury concerns now, because the Giants have failed to protect him. So he's got these neck issues. So the positive would be if you draft a quarterback, you kind of reset the salary at your quarterback position. But you're gonna have to give up a little bit something for him. I don't think they're gonna get a McCarthy at 6, from what I hear. And I'm sorry, your third question?
My first question was the receiver. The second question was, do you think Daniel Jones is the guy? The third question was your tackle. Are you going to think you want to pick Joe All from Notre Dame?
I don't think they're going to go tackle. They just went Neal a couple of years ago. I think they're still want to give him another shot. They picked up 3 or 4 linemen in the free agency, so that leads me to believe that they want a receiver. They didn't make a move after any big time receivers in the draft. I mean, in free agency. So that leads me to believe they're going to go after a receiver. I think too, if they were going to go quarterback and trade Jones, wouldn't they have signed Barkley?
I would think so.
So
that would make more sense.
Yeah, like if you were going to take a McCarthy, I think they would have tried to trade Jones and maybe sign Barkley. The fact that they got rid of Barkley and are keeping Jones leads you to believe they're going after a playmaking receiver.
So that could be one thing. And I think you brought up an interesting point about the trading Jones thing. Maybe they did not find suitors in the NFL who wanted Jones. So maybe Giants figure out and say, listen, he's actually, kind of middle of the pack kind of a quarterback, not the top echelon like the Mahomes of the world, but they can make some work with him with a good offensive line, get a good playmaker. And I do think that the Giants' run after catch last year was completely missing. And plus with Jones getting hurt, that doesn't help. No, I think you guys play with like Tyrod Taylor and some of those quarterbacks. So
yeah,
so I do think that they're probably going to say, he was your top first round pick. So stick with him, get a playmaker, receiver, maybe get like another tackle later in the second round, and then shore up the defense and then build the offense around Jones. I mean, that could be the case too. So they didn't find good suitors or good trade value maybe. And then, they figured out that it could be just building from around the quarter. Really happened. So that's good. I mean, I like your pick. I think Malik Neighbors is what I was thinking as well for the Giants. And of course, if Marvin Harrison falls, I'm definitely sure that you're going to pick Marvin Harrison, but he's not going to be there now unless Arizona decides to do something Arizona does all the time, which is trade down. And in that case, Marvin Harrison will be, maybe he's still there for you. But I do think that Malik Neighbors is your best option at this point. All right, let's get to your other needs for the Patriots, for the Giants. What do you think they go? And it's very difficult to pick rounds because you don't know who's going to be available in the second round or even third round. It's after that, it's just a luck of the draw. But at least one thing you can do is that um, provide your analysis on what the needs are and and how are they going to complete the roster for this next year.
Yeah, so the big acquisition they made in free agency was Brian Burns. Defensive end, really a game-changing type player. I was a little surprised they actually did the move because to me the move kind of signified a team that would be one player away from winning a Super Bowl. Obviously the Giants aren't there, and they gave up their first second round draft pick, which I kind of was hoping they might be able to use to get like a Bo Nix. So obviously now you lose that second round draft pick. You get Brian Burns, who's a very good player, but I think it changes your draft strategy because now you go from the sixth pick to I think the high 40s they're picking. So they need more secondary help for sure. They lost Xavier McKinney in the free agency. He was their safety. They used their first round draft pick last year on Deonte Banks, who's a cornerback. Looks like he's going to be a very good player for us. Their sixth round draft pick, who was a cornerback, who they really were high on, I believe his name was Hawkins, really didn't come to fruition last year during the year, but maybe this year, maybe he just needed a year or two of seasoning. But I could definitely see though them taking some secondary players, defensive backs in the second, third round. Like I said, I think their line is pretty stout. Their defensive line is pretty stout now with the addition of Burns. Obviously, you got Thibodeau on the other side, and you got Sexy Dexy in the middle there. So they have a great linebacker. The linebacker they picked up last year is really, really good. The middle linebacker. So I think defensively, other than the back side, they should be pretty decent. It's just going to be getting the support in the back defensive field, and then really getting some playmakers on the offense. They're going to need another running back now. They picked up Devin Singletary, who's kind of a between the tackles runner. I wouldn't call him explosive, but I think he's a guy that moves the chains. Short, compact running back. But I think they need a guy who, like a third down gadget, speedy type player. I would look for that in the third, fourth round. So if I had to predict the draft, I would say playmaking receiver in the first round, a defensive backfield player, cornerback or safety in the second round, and then probably a running back, a backup running back, a third down receiver, someone like a change of pace type guy in maybe like the fourth round. And I think that the draft it's pretty deep on offensive line as well. So you could see them filling some needs there.
So let me ask you another question. This is a big year, I think, for Brian Daboll, your head coach. He was with the Patriots, went to Alabama, then went to the Bills. I think he was kind of credited for the resurgence of Josh Allen. And he's had some time with Daniel Jones. Obviously, Jones was hurt last year. Do you think this is the make or break year for Brian Daboll?
Well, I think they got to play better than they did last year for sure. I think a lot of it depends on this draft, though. If that's the other thing, if they choose a quarterback, not only do they reset the salary of the quarterback position, but then I think it extends the term of a Dable and a Joe Shane. right? Because let's just say they grab a quarterback in the first round, and they're going to fire the whole both of them if they have a subpar year with a rookie quarterback.
Mhm.
So that would essentially give them some more years per se. So, but I like Dable. I was a little bummed to see Wink Martindale go. I guess they didn't get along too well.
Mhm.
And now with our new defensive coordinator, comes over from Tennessee. He's a little bit of a different type of coach where Wink liked to do a lot of blitzing. I don't think this guy likes that as much. So we'll have to see how the players shake out under his schemes. But I like Dable, and
Mhm.
I would be upset if they got rid of him after 1 year. But I think it all remains. I think the draft and obviously the season need to play out, and we'll see where it goes. If they don't go quarterback, and Jones has another bad year, then I think there's going to be changes.
I agree.
But I really feel like Jones. You saw what he did when they made that run and won the playoff game. I mean, he's got some game changing type plays. He's a very athletic guy. He's a pretty decent passer. I think he's underrated in that regard. To me, he gets unfairly criticized. I mean, so everyone's looking to replace Daniel Jones with the number 6 pick, but no one's looking to replace Kyler Murray with the number 4 pick. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think Kyler Murray's done anything more than Daniel Jones. Matter of fact, Daniel Jones led his team to a playoff win. I don't think Kyler Murray ever has,
Yeah.
and he's been as injury prone as Daniel Jones. And I think they both were drafted in the same draft. Yeah, because Murray was the number 1 pick that year. So I think in a lot of ways he gets a little bit unfairly criticized, but the injury concern is real. I mean, a guy who's had a couple of neck injuries, that's a real concern for a team in the future.
Yeah. The one thing I would say is that this is like not off this draft, but the Patriots now are also on the clock. I mean, they're going to pick the quarterback, but I think Ben McAdoo, who was with the Giants, is now I think it's like kind of with the Patriots staff. And apparently, many years ago, I know you going back to what you were just talking about, Kyler Murray was a Daniel Jones. I agree with you. Kyler is as electric as he has been. I don't think I've seen. I've seen promise, but I've not seen greatness.
Not consistency.
Not consistent, and he gets hurt a lot. And then the other thing is that when Ben McAdoo was a Giants, apparently, this is a story that I know I've heard on many Patriots podcasts that McAdoo was on the table asking the Giants to trade up and get Patrick Mahomes. Think about that.
Yeah.
And again, hindsight is 2020, but that's what sports fans do. Sports podcasters do. That's what they do. They it's almost revisionist history. They want to see what would have happened, what could have happened if the Giants had picked Patrick Mahomes. But it's here or there. But anyway, I hope that we were able to record this because I know it's the first time I emailed it out to somebody. But let's see. If not, we may have to redo it again, and you may not be too happy. But I think I hope it recorded well. That's my hope right now because I think you had a lot to say.
Yeah, no, I saw it recording on my end. I feel like the connection's been better this way than the last time.
Yeah, definitely. All right. I think any last minute thoughts? And I know you wanted to talk about the what the Giants wanted in terms of the needs. I think you handled that well, and I think looks like you're going with your guy Malik. Sorry, keep Daniel Jones, build around him, and let's see what the season brings. I mean, again, when you go last year, when you look at your own division, obviously the Eagles were supposedly a good team, but you know how it turned out for them in the playoffs. Cowboys, that what happens every year for the Cowboys, and I think, of course, and then you get to Commanders and Giants. I think to me it's a very evenly balanced division. I still think, and I'll give you one thing where if you look at Eagles, Kelsey's retired, right? So the Eagles, I mean, there's going to be a little disruption on the offensive line there. So I think it's anyone's division. I mean, I still think the Cowboys are probably better. I mean, even though, history doesn't dictate that, but I mean, there's why we love the NFL, because every year something dramatic happens.
Yeah, I think the Eagles, I think they're going to take a step back. I really think Hurts, I think teams have figured him out a little bit. And you're right now that this Kelsey retirement is going to be huge for them. Obviously, they added Saquon Barkley. I've always liked Barkley. He's a very good guy, very good team guy, team first type of guy, very athletic. But I wasn't totally unhappy to see him go. A lot of money for a running back with a lot of mileage on him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he'll have a good year or so with the Patriots, but in the long run, I think the Giants will be happy with that decision. But I do think the Eagles are going to take a step back. Maybe not right away this year, but I think going forward, Cowboys have a lot of pressure on them this year with Dak. Dak has a tremendous amount of pressure, and all year with the Cowboys is going to be. I almost feel like the Cowboys season is going to be. The regular season is not going to be like cared for as much, or not much weight put it that way, because they're just going to be waiting for the shoe to drop in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like they can go 17-0, and there's just going to be, they're going to have that weight of the playoffs hanging over them. So I think that's going to be a story that follows them all year. And the Commanders, we'll see what they do. I mean, it just seems like every year there's a lot of promise, but they can't get over the top. And we'll say this Daniels looks like he's an electric type player. He might be the best one. That's gonna be. I tell you, this draft, I'm really excited about it, because I think there's going to be 3 quarterbacks taken the first 3 picks. They're going to be compared forever.
Mm-hmm.
And all 3 teams need quarterbacks. I think that's a little odd.
Absolutely.
I think normally you might have a team at the top that maybe has their quarterback, and they don't necessarily draft one, and they trade out of it. Like the Bears last year, they traded out with Carolina. But this year, I think at the top, those 3 teams are going to take the 3 quarterbacks, and I think they'll be compared throughout their careers. And then I think it sets the stage for then you have the 3 receivers who I think will be compared throughout their careers. There's a lot of there's a lot of excitement. I think this draft is gonna really have a lot of weight in how the NFL plays out over the next 5-10 years, right? Because when you have 3 quarterbacks taken at the top of the draft, it impacts how the future plays. So it's exciting. I think it really is going to be. It's really going to be exciting. And my brother lives down in Florida now, and he's been talking about Daniels for a while. So saying he wanted the Giants to get him. And because in the beginning, I would say November, I don't think Daniels was considered a top 10 pick. I think he was considered more of a late first rounder. And
he definitely proved himself. And I think, Daniels and, and then Malik Neighbors combination. I'm conflicted for the Patriots between May and Daniels, but if Washington Commanders pick Drake May, we have to go Daniels, and if they pick Daniels, we have to go May. I think that's pretty much it. And you're right, the first 3 picks are the quarterbacks, and they're going to be judged forever.
Yep. And then and I think the Jets will grab the tight end. I think that's the tight end from Georgia, Brock Bowers. He seemed like a natural fit for them, particularly with Aaron Rodgers for a year or 2 there. They're going all in. and they're
They're
going to
going
have
all in. They
a
have to. I mean,
yeah.
hopefully, this is Jets hopes are always very interesting. And I'll be doing a Jets one too, a Jets podcast too, with a buddy of mine. So I'm looking forward to that. Every year, last year there was a lot of hope for them, but you know how it always happens for the Jets. But I really felt bad as a Patriots fan. I felt bad for the Jets. So I mean, that tells you, how much I actually wanted Rodgers to do well, but you never know. But who knows? I think he wants to come back and he wants to play 2 years. Looks like it. So, but they have to go all in on an offensive
Yep.
weapon. I mean, there are some good defensive guys in the draft, but like I said, this draft is very interesting because you don't know what you're going to get. It's going to be very interesting because there's a lot of. I mean, to me, like I said before, Joe Alt is the best player to me in the draft, but that's not what the Bears are going to pick. We know that they have to go quarterback, especially they traded Justin Fields out. So I think we're going to be watching TV. And one thing I did want to mention is that I heard Bill Belichick is going to be, now that he doesn't have a job, he's going to be on Pat McAfee's show, breaking down the draft. So it's going to be fun. I listened to his podcast with Pat McAfee, and it was gold. So if you haven't listened, I would definitely listen to it.
Yeah, Belichick's a wealth of knowledge, and it'd be interesting to see if he gets back in the league next year.
If he comes to the Giants, maybe that's how he finishes it.
Yeah, yeah. Roy? Quick, what did you think of him being fired by the Patriots or
Well, I
going
think
their
it
own
was it
ways?
was it was it was the end of the road. I think once Brady left, it seemed end of the road, and I think it seems like it's a mutual agreement, but I think it was kind of mutual agreement on one side by Kraft. Um, I think it was time for him to go. Although I was really surprised uh, that he didn't find a job. I thought he was going to Atlanta. I heard some rumblings yesterday about apparently Kraft called Arthur Blank and told him not to hire Belichick, which I don't know, but I was listening to
Yeah,
him on Pat McAfee show. He seemed very happy. He's like into the draft thing. I'm so excited to actually. I might actually watch that part over the regular NFL and ESPN thing because I think the even just listening to him, I mean, he's got so much energy just breaking down the draft. I still think he's a great coach. I still think he needs the pieces. And I always said maintain one thing. It's Belichick and Brady, not Brady or Belichick. So that's always been my thing. And I think I really want him to beat Don Shula's record. So whether it happens with the Giants, whether it happens with another team, I don't. I would really want him to get that. And I do think that he should be brought back to the Patriots, and then given his great, I would say like they have to honor him, for what
yeah.
he's done to the organization.
I think he's got to be considered the greatest coach of all time. I mean, there's 9 Super Bowls, 10 Super Bowls, won
Well, he's
7.
got
I
eight,
mean,
six with Patriots, two with the Giants. So that's 8.
yeah. Wow. Well, I mean, that's an
That's
amazing track record. Yeah.
right.
So,
All right, man. Hopefully we
all right,
recorded
Shree.
this. Otherwise we may have to do it again. But I'm hoping
Okay.
this is it.
My
It's
my site says recording here, so
all
hopefully we're
right. That's
good. And
good. And then when
let's.
you hang up, maybe it records on my end.
Okay. All right. Should be a fun week. Looking forward to it.
All right. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Have a
Yep.
good
Bye
day.
bye. Yep. You too.
Thank you for listening. Primo will be back soon.